condition. And by concentrating the mind, one can become free from all sinful activities. By restraining the senses, one can free himself from material association. And by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become free from the three modes of material attachment. Purport. According to Ayurvedic medicinal science, the three items, kapha, pitta and vayu, maintain the physiological condition of the body. Modern medical science does not accept this physiological analysis as valid, but the ancient Ayurvedic process of treatment is based upon these items. Ayurvedic treatment concerns itself with the cause of these three elements, which are mentioned in many places in the Bhagavatam as the basic conditions of the body. Here it is recommended that by practicing the breathing process of pranayama, one can be released from contamination created by the principal physiological elements. By concentrating the mind, one can become free from sinful activities, and by withdrawing the senses, one can free himself from material association. Ultimately, one has to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to be elevated to the transcendental position. Puruji, would you like to get a chair? Should we get you a chair to come and sit down? Sitting on the floor can be uncomfortable. We can get some chairs. So now, would you like us to get a chair? Get two chairs with her. Neelam can sit for some time. Neelam, please come sit. Some chairs. Yeah. Ultimately, one has to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to be elevated to the transcendental position where he is no longer affected by the three modes of material nature. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that one who engages himself in unalloyed devotional service at once becomes transcendental to the three modes of nature and immediately realizes his identification with Brahman. For every item in the yoga system there is a parallel activity in Bhakti Yoga, but the practice of Bhakti Yoga is easier for this age. What was introduced by Lord Chaitanya is not a new interpretation. Bhakti Yoga is a feasible process that begins with chanting and hearing. Bhakti Yoga and other yogas have as their ultimate goal the same personality of Godhead, but one is practical and the others are difficult. One has to purify his physiological condition by concentration and by restraint of the senses. Then he can fix his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is called samadhi. And today's verse. Yada manasvam virijam yogena susamahitam kashtam bhagavato dhyayet svanasagravalokanaha. Just realised I forgot to offer prayers before we recited the Srimad Bhagavatam, so we'll go backwards a little bit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Yada manasvam virijam. Yogena susamahitam. Yogena susamahitam. Ashtam bhagavato dhyayet. Ashtam bhagavato dhyayet. Svanasagravalokanaha. Svanasagravalokanaha. Somebody else like to read? Yada manasvam virijam. Yogena susamahitam. Kastam Bhagavato Jayet Svana Sagravalokana Yadamana Svavirijam Yogena Susamahitam Kastam Bhagavato Jayet Svana Sagravalokana Yada when Manaha the mind Svam own Virijam purified Yogena by yoga practice Susamahitam controlled Kashtam the plenary expansion Bhagavataha of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Jayet one should meditate upon Svanasa Agra the tip of one's nose Avalokanaha looking at translation by and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. When the mind is perfectly purified by this practice of yoga, one should concentrate on the tip of the nose with half-closed eyes and see the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. It is clearly mentioned here that one has to meditate upon the expansion of Vishnu. The word Kashtam refers to Paramatma, the expansion of Vishnu. Bhagavataha refers to Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Godhead is Krishna. From him comes the first expansion, Baladev, and from Baladev comes Sankashan, Aniruddha, and many other forms, followed by the Purusha avatars. As mentioned in the previous verse, this Purusha is represented as the Paramatma, or Supersoul. A description of the Supersoul, upon whom one must meditate, will be given in the following verses. In this verse it is clearly stated that one must meditate by fixing the vision on the tip of the nose and concentrating one's mind on the Kala, or the expansion of Vishnu. Omagana Timirandasya Kananjanan Shalakaya Chaksha Ummalitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born into the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 15, text number 15, Krishna confirms, I am seated in the heart of all living beings, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. And by all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So in many ways in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is affirming that he is the supreme goal. He is the supreme person. And he is situated so close to us, he's within our hearts, and yet we can't see him. Last week at the school, I was talking to all the children in an assembly, and in the morning as I was walking into the school, one of the young children, new entrants, he walked past and he said, Haribol Prabhupada. And the other one next to him said, Haribol Prabhupada. And so I just said, Haribol. Later in the assembly, I said, a couple of the children, they called me Prabhupada. I said, that's very wonderful. But actually, I'm not Prabhupada. I'm Krsnananda. Prabhupada. Yeah, it was very wonderful that they're saying Prabhupada. And I said, Prabhupada could see Krishna everywhere and in everything, and he was Krishna's pure devotee. But I can't see Krishna everywhere. And one of the children put their hand up and said, yes, you can. You go to the temple, you can see Krishna. So she was reminding me that actually Krishna, we can see Krishna. Krishna's come in this form as a deity so that we can see him. But Prabhupada explains that to really see Krishna, we have to be very much eager. To be very eager to see Krishna, very determined. So Prabhupada tells a story of, he says, there was a professional reciter of Bhagavatam, and he was talking all about Krishna. And he was telling all the people how Krishna is dressed in beautiful ornaments and has so many jewels and diamonds. And in the assembly there was one thief. He heard this. There's a little boy in the forest of Vrindavan and he's covered in jewels and gold and diamonds. I'm going to go and find this boy and steal his jewels. So this thief was very determined that he was going to go and find Krishna. So he went into Vrindavan forest and he was so determined, where is this boy? Where is this boy? I must find him. He had nothing else in his mind. I must find this boy. And so Krishna appeared before him. And the thief was trying to flatter Krishna, saying, oh, you're a nice boy. Why don't you give me some of your jewelry? And Krishna said, no, my mother will tell me off. He was playing like a small boy. And the thief became more determined and more determined to try and get Krishna's jewels. But after some time, just being in the presence of Krishna, he became purified. And he no longer wanted the jewels. He realized this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't need, I've seen him, now I'm satisfied. I don't need jewels or diamonds or millions of dollars. I've already seen the supreme goal of life. So Prabhupada tells this story and he says, this kind of eagerness is needed. Even the motivation doesn't matter. If one is eager to see God, then God will reciprocate with his eagerness. And so the other example is Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he was only 5 years old. And his stepmother had offended him because he wanted to sit on the lap of his father, who was a king. And his stepmother said, no, you cannot sit on your father's lap because you are not my son. So Dhruva Maharaj became very offended. And he was very determined. He said to his own mother, Mother, what can I do to get a kingdom greater than my father's? I want a kingdom even greater than Lord Brahma. What can I do? And his mother said, you must go to the forest and find the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was only 5 years old. So he went to the forest very determined, looking everywhere, asking the beasts and the birds, have you seen God? If you saw the sages, have you seen God? I need to find him. And so Narada Muni, who we know as a transcendental sage who travels around the universe doing Krishna's work, appeared before Dhruva as a little boy and tried to dissuade him. He said, Dhruva, don't take the words of your stepmother seriously. Why don't you just go home? Living in the forest, it's very difficult. And to practice yoga in the forest, it's very difficult. How can you do this? And Dhruva Maharaj said, I'm sorry, but you need to move out of my way. This is my mission. I have material desire, and I know that God can fulfill it. So his motivation wasn't pure. His motivation wasn't just to see God, his motivation was to get a kingdom. He wanted to fulfill that desire. So Narada Muni blessed him and gave him the process and told him the mantras to chant and the process to go through. And he went to the forest on his own, and for 1 month, every 3 days he would eat fruits and berries. And then for the next month, every 6 days, he would eat grass and dry leaves. And then for the next month, every 9 days, he would drink water. And then for the next month, every 12 days, he would take a breath. So this is extreme yoga practice. How many people in this modern age can do such a thing? Do you know anybody? I'm sure there are yogis, I'm sure there are. There are some yogis out there, but they're few and far between. There's not many of us that have that kind of fortitude. We could go and sit in the forest down here. Shall we do 3 months? 3 months in the forest? We probably wouldn't even survive. So in this age, Lord Chaitanya came to recommend a different process. In this age, he gave us a different process. The process was congregational chanting, that everybody comes together and chants God's names. And if one is very much eager in chanting Krishna's names, then he has the opportunity to perfect this life. I'm going to read a little bit here. This is from Haridas Thakur. Who better to hear from about the holy names than Haridas Thakur? Haridas Thakur was the Namacharya, and he was chanting 300,000 names of Krishna every day. Prabhupada says we shouldn't try to imitate. We can't chant that many rounds every day. So we should chant 16 rounds every day. And in this particular section, Lord Chaitanya was expressing to Haridas Thakur. He was very concerned. He was concerned about all the living entities. How are we going to save them? All these people in the material world in Kali Yuga, how can we save them? Because there's so much disturbed. What are we going to do? And Haridas Thakur said, don't worry, my Lord. Let's get back to the section of this. Haridas Thakur says, just worship Krishna, the purifier of all purifiers, the most exalted of the personalities, worshipped by poetry. Worship him with a faithful, unflinching mind, without duplicity, and in a highly elevated manner. Thus worship the Lord, whose name is like the sun. For just as a slight appearance of the sun dissipates the darkness of night, so a slight appearance of the holy name of Krishna can drive away all the darkness of ignorance that arises in the heart. It's a very beautiful sloka, isn't it? And I'll read that again. Thus worship the Lord, whose name is like the sun. For just as a slight appearance of the sun dissipates the darkness of night, so a slight appearance of the holy name of Krishna can drive away all the darkness of ignorance that arises in the heart, due to greatly sinful activities performed in previous lives. Even a faint light from the holy name can eradicate all the reactions of sinful life. While dying, Ajamil chanted the holy name of the Lord, intending to call his son Narayan. Nevertheless, he attained the spiritual world. What then to speak of those who chant the holy name with faith and reverence? Because even the faintest rays of the effulgence of the Lord's holy name, one can attain liberation. We can see this in all the revealed scriptures. The evidence appears in the story of Ajamil and Srimad Bhagavatam. So, going back to our purport today, the translation says, when the mind is perfectly purified by yoga practice. So, in previous ages, the recommended process for purification was like Dhruva Maharaj, followed the very extreme yoga practice. And in this age, in Kali Yuga, the process of purification of the mind is to chant Krishna's names, is to chant the holy names. And as we were discussing last week, through the process of chanting, one gains purification. And through purification, one becomes more aware, more conscious. And then we start to become conscious of our mind. And we have the opportunity, through that awareness and through that consciousness, to control our minds and focus our minds on what we want to achieve. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhoga Ishvarya Prasaktanam Tayaparita Chaitasam Vyavasyatmaka Buddhya Samadhana Vidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to material opulence and sense enjoyment, the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. So determination is synonymous with eagerness, isn't it? If I'm eager, then I'm also determined. So we see in Dhruva Maharaj, he was eager to get a kingdom greater than his father's, and therefore he was very much determined to do whatever it took to achieve that. But this verse is saying that when we have too many material desires, or our mind is disturbed by such things, then the determination, the resolute determination, which is one pointed determination to see Krishna, is not there. So what does that mean for us practically? Because the reality is that most of us have material desires, and they're getting in the way of our resolute determination to see Krishna. Should we just deny them and put them in the closet and close the door? What would happen? They may eventually burst and the door will explode as the bubbles become too much. Like if you shake a fizzy drink and then suddenly it explodes. So in these examples of Dhruva Maharaj and the thief, the story as well, they have material desires, but they're approaching Krishna to fulfill them. They're not denying them, they're actually approaching Krishna with eagerness, with determination. But then their desires become purified in a healthy, natural way. So Dhruva Maharaj, when Vishnu appeared before him in his form as the super soul, and then he said, "What do you want? I'm here, I give you my... anything you want, I will give to you." Dhruva Maharaj said, "Well, now that I've seen you, I don't desire anything. All those things I was desiring before are just like broken pieces of glass. They've lost their effulgence. When you have the higher taste, then things within the material world seem very attractive, right? Like if you see the city from a distance at night time, it looks very attractive. The lights and the colours. But when you actually go into the city at night time, it's very unattractive. It's full of drunks and homeless people. It's not a very nice place. It's a dark place. But it looks attractive. And the material energy is like that. She looks very attractive. But you can never quite catch that beauty. It runs away. A few weeks ago we were surfing, and sometimes you're sitting out in the ocean, you see just over there's a perfect wave. If I was just 200 meters over there, I could surf that perfect wave, so we paddle over, and suddenly it's over there. So I was thinking, yes, this is like the material world. Suddenly it's attractive, and we try to grasp that thing, but it loses its attraction very fast once we have it. And so the only thing that's going to satisfy us is the ultimate goal, and that is to connect with Krishna, and ultimately to see Krishna. Prabhupada says people want to see God, they want to see Krishna, but they take it so cheap. And he gives the example of if a car's broken down, people can see the car's broken down. But if a mechanic looks at the same car, he can see exactly what the problem is, diagnose the problem, and fix the problem. So because he has knowledge, he knows how to diagnose the problem. He said, but people who don't know God, they're trying to see God, and they're demanding, where is God? I want to see God. Why I can't see God? So he says, you have to be qualified, you have to have the eyes to see God. And then at the same time he says, well, how can we not see God? You drink water, you can taste. Krishna says, I am the taste in water. I am the light of the moon. I am the, what else? Oh, the light of the sun. So in one sense, a devotee sees Krishna in everything, and everything in Krishna. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or realizations to share? I do need to take this phone call, but it's one of our teachers. Hello, Subhadra.